Are you having people over for dinner and stressing out about dessert? This Banoffee Pavlova is the perfect recipe for you. Dark chocolate meringue meets light whipped cream and decadent salted coffee caramel sauce, all topped off with glistening brûléed bananas. Let this be the centerpiece of your next dinner party. Or, screw the occasion, just make it for yourself and demolish the entire thing in one sitting. I don't know, you do you. Hey there, welcome to my kitchen. My name is Sheldon, but my friends call me Sheldo, so why don't you do the same? Today we're making Banoffee Pavlova, a surefire crowd pleaser made entirely of common pantry ingredients. It's perfect for a dinner party because the elements can be prepped ahead of time, and then only light assembly is required before serving. How great is that? Alright, let's get baking. Starting with the meringue. A Pavlova's signature texture is crisp on the outside while retaining a soft, marshmallowy center. We're taking this one step further by incorporating chocolate in the form of cocoa powder. This is going to make the inside oh so fudgy and gooey. First, preheat the oven to 300 degrees Fahrenheit or 150 Celsius with the rack in the center of the oven. Then with a pencil, trace a 6-inch circle on a piece of parchment paper. Flip the parchment paper over so that the graphite side is down and place it on a baking tray. Set that aside for now. Make sure that your mixing bowl and whisk attachment are completely clean, free of any oil or fat. This will ensure that our meringue whips to its full volume. I'm using lemon juice, then wiping down here, but any kind of vinegar will also work. Let's separate some eggs. I've got 4 large eggs here straight from the fridge. Eggs are easier to separate when they're cold. Our number 1 mission is to get all of the egg whites into the mixer bowl without a single trace of egg yolk. I like to crack my egg into a separate small bowl and use my impeccably clean hands to fish out the egg yolk before pouring the egg white into the main mixer bowl. I do this 1 egg at a time so that if any egg yolks break, oops, just like this one here, it doesn't contaminate the rest of the egg whites. Another common way of separating eggs is using the shell, but I always end up puncturing the egg yolk and making a huge mess. With just the egg whites in the mixer bowl, turn the mixer to high speed and whip until soft peaks. Then turn the mixer to medium-high, and while whipping, add in 200 grams or 1 cup of sugar. This must be done slowly to avoid deflating the eggs. Go 1 tablespoon at a time, slowly streaming the sugar in. I know this may seem excessively slow, but I used to rush and dump all the sugar in at once, and then lament how I couldn't make good meringue. So be patient here. Practice some deep breathing, or I don't know, contemplate how truly insignificant we all are on the scale of the universe. Whatever floats your boat. Anyway, once all the sugar is added, stop the mixer and scrape the bowl down. Resume mixing at the same speed until all the sugar has dissolved and the meringue is stiff and glossy. Periodically, rub a bit of meringue between 2 fingers to feel for sugar crystals. Once the meringue is smooth without any palpable sugar, it's ready. Add 1 teaspoon of balsamic vinegar and mix for a few seconds until just combined. Vinegar is one of 2 ingredients that contribute to a Pavlova's texture. It stabilizes the meringue, helping it not collapse even though we're technically underbaking it to retain that soft center. Any vinegar will work here, but I chose balsamic for its depth, which pairs super well with chocolate. The other ingredient that makes Pavlova Pavlova is cornstarch. It'll help buffer the egg whites from overcooking. When heated, starch granules absorb water, forming a gel, again contributing to that squidgy interior we're aiming for. 1 teaspoon of cornstarch gets sifted in along with 1 teaspoon of instant coffee and 2 tablespoons of cocoa powder. You won't be able to taste the coffee, but it amplifies the chocolate flavor. Cocoa powder and cornstarch both have the tendency to form lumps, so it's super important to sift them in. Use a spatula to gently fold the egg mixture until all the dry ingredients are incorporated. Do this quickly and don't overwork the mixture too much. We don't want to deflate the meringue. Put 4 small dabs of meringue in the corners of the baking tray under the parchment to hold the parchment down. Then plop all the meringue onto the tray, aiming for the circle. Use an offset spatula or spoon to coax the meringue to the edge of the 6-inch circle, aiming for a tall, attractive mound. Pavlova is meant to be casually inviting, so don't spend too long perfecting. I've always found that the more you try to shape a pavlova, the worse it looks. In my case, I should have stopped fussing about a minute ago. Now it doesn't look quite as nice. Oh well, lesson learned. Put the tray in the oven and then immediately drop the temperature to 250 Fahrenheit or 120 Celsius. The meringue is going to bake for around 90 minutes at this low temperature. After the 90 minutes, turn off the oven but leave the meringue inside. Crack the door slightly and let the meringue cool down fully in the oven, at least another 90 minutes. Depending on your oven, you may need to prop the door open with a wooden spoon. This cooling period will ensure that the meringue is perfectly set all the way through and will prevent it from cracking too much. However, some cracks are perfectly normal. Pavlova is meant to be like that, perfectly imperfect. While the meringue is baking, let's make the salted coffee caramel sauce. Start off by measuring out all the ingredients and have them set up right beside the stove. Once the sugar starts caramelizing, things go fast, so we have to be ready. I've got 3/4 cup or 180 grams of whipping cream, or heavy cream, same thing, that I gently warmed up in the microwave. To that, add 2 teaspoons instant coffee and 3/4 teaspoon kosher salt. Use a 1/4 teaspoon if you got table salt or fine sea salt. Stir until evenly combined. Place a large stainless steel skillet over medium heat. Add half of the sugar in an even layer over the bottom of the pan. This is my favorite way of making caramel because it's also the fastest. We're making a dry caramel here without any added water, which may seem intimidating at first, but once you get the hang of it, it's a breeze. I've never crystallized my sugar doing it this way. Remember to be super, and I cannot stress this enough, super careful. Sugar gets very hot during the caramelization process, much hotter than boiling water. Work cautiously and don't get any hot sugar on yourself. Let the sugar cook over medium heat without stirring until patches start melting and turn translucent. Then spoon the rest of the sugar over these patches as they appear until the other half of the sugar is all added in. Our goal here is to melt all of the sugar evenly while keeping the sugar that has already melted from burning. Once the sugar around the edge of the pan is melted, use a silicone spatula to push in the edges and redistribute the melted sugar. Start constantly stirring with the spatula so everything heats evenly. It'll be lumpy and grainy at first, but don't worry, keep stirring and all of the sugar will melt. You can use the spatula to smush out any lingering bits of solid sugar. Soon, most of the sugar will have dissolved and start turning an amber color. It may start smoking slightly at this point, that's fine. Keep stirring until absolutely all of the solid sugar is gone. Immediately add in the butter. Swirl with the spatula until the butter is melted and starts bubbling. Keep stirring and cooking until the bubbles die down. At this point, slowly stream in the cream mixture. Since the cream is colder than the caramel, parts of the caramel may seize up. Just keep stirring and the lumps will dissolve again. Be careful here because the mixture will steam and bubble up. Once all the cream is added, boil for 1 more minute, then turn off the heat. Now the caramel sauce is done. It'll still be runny since it's so hot, but will thicken as it cools. Let the caramel cool slightly in the pan before transferring to a microwavable container. When serving, if the caramel isn't runny anymore, microwave in 10-second increments, stirring in between until it reaches a drizzleable consistency. Drizzleable, is that a word? Anyway, don't let it get too hot though, because it'll melt the whipped cream. Speaking of whipped cream, I, no joke, am an absolute fanatic for whipped cream, and this is my absolute favorite way to make it. My secret is some Greek yogurt and a sprinkling of salt. The Greek yogurt adds a pleasant lactic tang, which lightens the richness of the cream, and the salt just enhances everything. Add 1 cup of chilled cream to a large bowl, along with 1 tablespoon of sugar and a pinch of salt. I'm whipping by hand today because 1 cup of cream whips up super quickly, and I'm too lazy to clean out my stand mixer bowl. But feel free to use a mixer here. Whip the cream until it reaches soft peaks. Then add in a 1/4 cup of yogurt. Whisk to incorporate, and then keep whisking until the cream reaches a nice medium firm peak. If you're making the cream ahead of time and not using right away, only whisk until the yogurt is just combined. Cover and store in the fridge, then right before serving, just a few extra seconds with a whisk will bring it to the right consistency. For the toppings, roughly chop up a 1/4 cup of roasted peanuts and set it aside. I'm a huge fan of a sweet, salty moment, so I use salted peanuts here, but you can definitely use plain roasted peanuts as well. Feel free to omit the nuts altogether if you wish. Take a nice chocolate bar and flip it over, smooth side up. Firmly hold the bar in one hand and use a knife to scrape along its length, making beautiful chocolate shavings. These shavings are super light and melt really easily, so try not to handle them too much with bare hands. Put these in a container and set them aside as well. Okay, let's talk assembly. The pavlova should be assembled at the very last minute, right before serving. Once the whipped cream is introduced, the meringue begins to soften. Right before assembly, prep the brûléed bananas. This also has to be done last minute because after a while, moisture from the banana will start to soften that crackly sugar layer. They'll still taste great, but won't have the brûléed effect anymore. Peel 2 large bananas, slice in half lengthwise, then cut each half into 3 pieces on a bias. Lay the sliced bananas on a metal tray, cut side up. Working with a few at a time, sprinkle a generous amount of sugar onto each piece of banana. Then, before the sugar dissolves, use a kitchen torch to melt and caramelize the sugar. Keep moving the torch back and forth, never lingering too long in one spot, until the entire surface is even, golden, caramelly brown. Let the bananas cool slightly for the sugar to firm up. Alternatively, skip the brûlée and garnish with regular sliced bananas instead. The pavlova will still taste amazing. Transfer the fully cooled meringue onto a serving tray. Notice now how the meringue is wider than when it went in the oven. I find that the meringue will puff up and spread a bit while it cooks, turning into more of an 8-inch round, so size your serving vessel accordingly. Mound all the whipped cream onto the meringue, use an offset spatula or spoon to spread out and cover the top of the meringue. Add some character to the cream by creating some charming dips and eddies and whirls. Generously drizzle over the glossy caramel sauce, allowing it to cascade over the sides of the pavlova. I like to then gently swirl the caramel into the whipped cream, melding the two together. Next, boldly rain down chopped peanuts and scatter over the gorgeous chocolate shavings. Finish by placing on the jewel-like brûléed banana pieces, haphazardly arranging them over the top of the pavlova. For good measure, a tiny sprinkle more of peanuts and chocolate. And voila, our Banoffee Pavlova is finished. Check out the glossy amber bananas. Crunchy peanuts and feather-light chocolate shavings sit atop a bed of luscious caramel sauce. Oh, that caramel! Simple sugar made complex by caramelization, then bolstered with rich coffee flavor. Then we get to the whipped cream, perfectly accompanying the main event, the star of the show, the meringue. The light color of the outside belies its chocolatey interior. With a serrated knife, slice into the pavlova and find a plush, marshmallow center, perfectly set, yet still glistening and gooey. The ideal bite with a little bit of everything is a study in contrast. Such big flavor, yet such light texture. It's like eating a luxurious cloud. You're definitely gonna want more than one slice of this pavlova. Alright, so that's my Banoffee Pavlova. I don't know how to tell you how truly delicious it is without sounding over the top hyperbolic. But if you like chocolate and banana, then you've got to try it out. Even if you don't usually like pavlova, this is the pavlova that'll change your mind. If it doesn't, then you can be assured that you truly don't like pavlovas whatsoever. If you do make this, please comment below and let me know how it goes. I'd love to hear from you. Please tag me in any photos. You can find me on Instagram right here. As always, the full written recipe can be found in the description with all the ingredient amounts and detailed written instructions. Thank you so much for joining me on another episode of Sheldo's Kitchen, where each week I show you delicious and unique recipes tailor-made for the home kitchen. I hope to see you again soon. Bye.